How's it going, guys? I'm Robert from Machado Visuals, and I wanted to give a quick review on the Teradek RT. I've been interested in this system ever since I saw it at NAB because of its integration with SmallHD products. We put the system through its paces on Ismahawk's latest project with Rooster Teeth, so be sure to check it out on Death Battle's channel. I'll admit, I can probably count the amount of times a year I AC on one hand, but I actually really do enjoy pulling focus. It requires such a high level of sustained concentration and is one of the most important jobs on set. In terms of wireless follow focus systems, I already own the Nucleus M, but it lacks a handful of features that make a big difference on professional sets. First, I want to talk about the things I really like about this system. The build quality is fantastic. It has an all-metal construction that feels great in the hand. The focus wheel has just enough resistance that it feels buttery smooth, and the deluxe kit comes with a ton of metric and imperial discs, so you can swap them if you want a larger throw at specific distances. It also comes with just about every cable you'd ever need for power, as well as start-stop cables for red and airy. The motor driver is super teeny and very lightweight. It's pretty comparable to Aries AMC1 and features various quarter 20 threads and a pass-through hole for mounting. More on that later. Next, the new motr.x's have a tremendous amount of torque. They're almost too powerful. If you have stiff lenses, the high setting will throw them around like melted butter. For example, here are the motr.x's pitted against a Vistaprime, which has an extremely viscous throw, to put it mildly. This can be helpful if you're doing extremely quick racks from close to deep focus, but there are a few downsides to this, more on that later. It's super easy to change your motor assignments. Just hold down the button on the motor to cycle through focus, iris, and zoom. The motors can be daisy chained, meaning that power and data can pass through each motor with a single cable. Another one of the biggest features is the range. Teradek is obviously known for their wireless systems, and the Teradek RT follows suit. To give you an idea, on this project we were shooting in the middle of Chinatown, and I walked all the way to the street sidewalk and maintained a solid connection the whole way through. Now, I haven't done any scientific range tests, but Teradek quotes the range at 5,000 feet. One of the biggest appeals to the system is the SmallHD integration. If you have a SmallHD monitor running OS3, you're able to overlay lens data in real time directly on the monitor. Now, this makes life so much easier when checking distances, especially mid-take. You'd be surprised how much time you save by just glancing at the side of the monitor rather than back and forth between the hand unit. We were rocking Agenu Easy lenses, so it was great being able to set focal length and iris directly from the monitor. It also integrates really well with Cinetape, so you can set a hotkey to turn on autofocus if you needed to quickly zap to a target, such as the slate before a take. The mdr.x is an optional module for DSMC2 cameras and allows for physical camera control on the AC side of the camera. This accessory is incredible for accessing camera settings without using the red touch monitor. I've always despised navigating through red menus using the monitor, and I always find it clunky and slow. The ACI instead uses physical buttons to control settings in a more traditional layout, similar to an Alexa. It's super responsive, and you have access to playback, you can format and eject cards, and you could even go as deep as black shading the camera. The kit also comes with an articulating arm, so I'm able to mount the hand unit to a stand along with a monitor. This made it super convenient and easy to move in between setups. If you're lucky enough to have a newer SmallHD monitor with a built-in bolt receiver, you have a super lightweight setup that's completely handheld, so you can stay right next to camera. Now for the not so great things, I really wish the Control 3 hand unit had a vibrating marker function. This was a feature I constantly used on the WC4 or even Nucleus M to physically let me know that I've landed on my mark. Now, the Teradek RT does have a limit function, which essentially acts as a hard stop, but I'd much rather prefer having vibration, so I'm able to stay flexible in case talent overshoots their mark. Moving on to the motor driver, it didn't include a bolt for the pass-through hole I mentioned earlier. There are quarter 20 holes, but I prefer not using magic arms if I don't have to. Like, come on, just include a bolt. The optional mdr.x for red cameras is neat and dandy, and it does add some functionality, but I do have a few quirks with it. First of all, the ACI is pretty thick, and normally I wouldn't care, but it does block a few ports on Red's top plate and the production module. If you're using the top plate, you won't be able to use right angle cables, and if you're using the production module, you won't be able to use some of the auxiliary ports. Secondly, you can't calibrate the motors directly from the ACI, and you'd think you'd be able to do this. You have to go back to the hand unit, and I'm not sure why this wasn't implemented because it would make sense calibrating directly from the camera right after a lens change. The hand unit does provide some degree of camera control for red cameras, but you're basically limited to ISO and shutter speed, so I didn't find it particularly useful. I generally found it better just to change settings directly via the ACI or the red touch monitor. When I mentioned earlier that these motors draw a tremendous amount of power, I wasn't joking. If you're on the medium or high torque setting, it can easily trip 14-volt batteries, especially if you're running extra accessories. The lower settings do limit the available amperage draw, so you don't trip your power source, but it will take a hit on responsiveness and is a bit audible if you're doing extreme racks. This is generally fine for 90% of work, but should still be a consideration. Even on medium torque, we would occasionally trip the battery when running off the mdr ACI, which would completely cut power to the camera and just totally reset it. This is the last thing you want happening on set, especially mid-take, and actually happened to us a few times when we were framing up the slate, effectively shutting down production as we were getting ready to roll. It's usually best to use a unregulated D-tap, so you're not dealing with load restrictions from D-boxes or production modules. I usually don't like using D-taps directly off the battery since I prefer not unplugging accessories with every battery swap. In our case, our only other option was through Red's production module, which has a load limit of 3 amps. Despite a few major shortcomings with the Teradek RT, it remains to be a fantastic wireless follow focus. It does take a few days to learn your way around the system, but same goes for any other piece of kit. Keep in mind that this is a professional system, and with that come professional prices. A 3-axis kit retails for around 12 grand, but you'll be spending nearly double that for an area equivalent, which leads me to my next point, brand recognition. Productions will generally lean towards renting brand names, particularly Arri. This is exactly why I invested in a sky panel over something more affordable such as the Gemini at the time, because it's easily rentable. Industry professionals want to rent what they know. They're generally not renting other brands, not because they aren't good, but simply because they haven't had experience with them on set. The Arri integration is unparalleled. You have so much camera control right in the palm of your hand, so if you're working almost exclusively with Alexis, it would probably make more sense to invest in the WCU4. But for me personally, I don't always know what camera I'll be working with, which is why the Teradek RT suits my workflow since I'm able to have on-screen overlays no matter the camera system. It probably has the best bang for buck when compared to an Arri or Preston system, but if you don't need lens mappings or data overlays, a Nucleus M would probably be just fine. I will say though that being able to precisely quantify distance goes a long way when performing your job as a first. Hopefully this video is helpful in some way. The first AC is arguably the most important job on set and are pretty much glorified problem solvers. Although I don't AC very often, I actually do really enjoy pulling focus.
But I'm not a rapper. What?
Whether you're investing in a pro-level 3-axis system like a Preston or a budget-friendly Warlord like the Nucleus M, it's super important to take a few days and learn the ins and outs of that specific unit, including its limitations. Reliability is king on set, and efficiency goes a long way when trying to make your day. If you have any questions on this video, feel free to leave them in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.